Sage Wanderer here, and welcome to my autobiography, The Perils of an Interesting Life. This is episode 12. Stacy's mom has got it going on. Now, I've got to tell you, viewer discretion is advised here. I'm rating all of these videos from here on out pretty much PG-13, with rare exception. And I said in another video, I'm not a monk. I've lived an interesting life, and some of the perils of an interesting life is telling the story. It can be perilous. So viewer discretion is advised. Please don't hate me for the decisions I made as a 18-year-old. All right, and remember, it was a different time back then. So in a previous video, I talked about two friends of mine, Barry and Larry. And Larry was, he got me a job at a cabinet shop building custom furniture. And I had moved back in with my parents temporarily. And, I got closer with Larry, and I started hanging out more with Barry, and they both started to trust me. And eventually, Barry introduced me to his family. And he had a very unusual family and an unusual life himself, and he probably ought to write an autobiography as well. But one day, I was just hanging out. Barry and I used to go out in the Trinity River bottoms and illegally shoot guns inside the Dallas city limits. We never got in trouble. I guess it was far enough away they didn't hear the shots and didn't care. And we came back one day after going out and doing that very redneck activity of getting drunk and getting stoned and shooting guns down in the Trinity River bottoms. And we were riding back in his 1979 Chevy Love four-wheel drive pickup that he'd purchased from a custom truck-making company out of California. And the truck had actually appeared in several... It's the same truck in the previous episode that he stuck the shotgun out of. And but it had a custom paint job and the big wheels and the roll bar and the little lights on top and all of the toggle switches that turned all the lights on, the brush bar and everything on, and it was just cool truck. I coveted thy brother's truck. But anyway, he ended up taking me. He wasn't even telling me where we're going. He's like, "Come with me. We got to make a stop." So we ended up at his mother's apartment. And we walk in, and the first thing that I'm surprised about is how attractive his mother is. I mean, she's very fit, very shapely, has the body of a much younger woman, has a very stylish, even back then, $200 haircut, and she seemed very sophisticated. And come to find out, there was a reason for that. She was one of the people who worked very hard to break down the glass ceiling in corporate America, and that she'd made a career and lived as a single mom and raised her kids as a single mom, as a purchaser for a major international construction company. So she bought stuff like cranes and bulldozers and diesel trucks for a living, and for this construction company. She was a purchaser. Very interesting woman with a very interesting life. And so we had a brief conversation. We were starting to get to know each other. And then a door opens up, and two girls closer to my age come out. One, I find out later, is 15 and about to be 16. And the other one is 16 and about to be 17. And I just turned 18. So I'm much closer to their age than I am even to my friend Barry, who's 28, or his mother, who's 48. And so, I'm a young guy. Boom, pretty girls. And it was a different world back then. Before you start going back in time and prosecuting 18-year-olds for dating 15 and 16-year-old girls, or college boys from dating high school girls, it's just you got to recall, it was the way things were done. Nobody thought a thing about it. In fact, I felt almost immediately that both Barry and his mother wanted me to date Barry's little sister, Stacy, who was, like I said, just about to turn 16. And so, another thing that puzzled me, as soon as they walked out and came into the living room, the two girls, Barry reached underneath his mother's couch and pulled a Frisbee out that was covered in pot. So I'm thinking, okay, this is the first time I've ever gotten stoned with somebody's mom. Like she seems okay with it. And then I'm thinking, well, it's her Frisbee. It's under her couch, right? And so Barry rolls this joint up, and I think we're going to smoke it. But instead, he throws it to his sister and her friend and said, you guys take this somewhere else and smoke it. I don't want to get high with a bunch of giggly girls. And they leave, and we continue to have this adult conversation, and while we smoke a joint with Barry's mom. And it's puzzling to me coming from a preacher's home. I've never encountered anything like this. I never encountered an old hippie. I never knew anybody that was that progressive ever. And yeah, I find it at that point in my young life one of the most interesting evenings of my life. And but as the evening wore on, you know, the girls got giggly, and, you know, I was closer to their age than anybody else. And so, you know, and plus I was kind of encouraged, you know, go spend time with the girls. So I got to know Stacy and Laura, and we became friends. And eventually I kind of became Stacy's boyfriend. It was all fairly innocent, you know, holding hands and kissing. And, you know, I got to be she got to have the older boyfriend who rolled up in front of the high school in his car, and she got to jump in and, you know, give all her friends the finger and, you know, bye suckers, you know, I'm going to go with my older boyfriend. And it was just a common thing, you know. Shoot, I wasn't the only college-age guy that was picking up high school girls in front of the school. You know, there were several of us. And I think I've talked about this in previous videos, how you really can't prosecute people today in the public sphere for something that happened at a time where things were different. And but anyway, that didn't bother anybody in her family. Her mom approved of it. In fact, her mom had picked me to be the guy to marry her. And I was on board. I found Stacy to be a very intelligent and very beautiful young lady. And the truth be told, her and I would eventually get a second shot as adults many years later. But at any rate, I still felt like a kid, even though I was, you know, more or less emancipated. I'd go home every once in a while. I'd been couch surfing since 15, you know, or 16. And so I still felt like a kid. I mean, you know, I was still just an 18-year-old. But enough with the apologies. We'll get on with the story. And so Stacy and I dated, and I continued to work over at Larry's friend's cabinet shop making custom furniture. I made a lot of money, and I did quite well during that period of my life. And but when Larry found out that I was dating Barry's little sister, it freaked him out, because even though, you know, Larry was 32 and I was only 18, he saw me as a man, and he saw me as his equal. And to him, it seemed, and he was from up north, which was a little different attitude. You know, I think he was from Chicago. And so maybe, you know, barely adult boys and high school girls didn't date where he came from, you know, but in Texas it was common. In Oregon it was common. My sisters in high school all dated college boys, and or military boys that had just gone off to the Army or Navy or something, you know. And so it was not an uncommon thing, but it really, really bothered Larry. It really got under his skin, and one day he confronted me about it, and finally he went to our boss and said, you know, that he wanted him to fire me over it. And he did. He did. He fired me over this simply, and he went to me, he was like, look, I don't care what you're doing. I don't got a problem with that. Thing is, he does, and I really need him more than I need you, and if he's going to quit, I don't have a replacement for him, and you can't do what he does yet, so sorry. And so that was kind of the end of the friendship with me and Larry. It was all over me dating a girl that was, you know, barely 2 years younger than me. But nonetheless, and I have to go back and say, I think that was the only time I ever dated a younger girl from here on out. Because I was ready for an adult relationship, and she wasn't. I was ready for sex, and she wasn't. And I probably needed to wait for another year or two, and I really wasn't prepared to do that, and I began to pressure her a little bit. And, you know, it was the 80s. Everybody was doing it, and I just wanted to get included, you know. And so eventually it kind of caused a rift between us, and right about then, one of Barry's girlfriends had gotten attacked by her ex-husband, and he was crazy, and everyone was afraid he was going to kill her. And so she fled in the night and moved in with Stacy and her mom, and she was around all the time. And she had a daughter that was 12 years old. a full almost 4 years younger than Stacy. So Stacy had the option to either, go with, let's become an adult now. Let's do what I did at 16, which is, run headlong into adulthood and be with me, or she could revert back and become more childlike and reclaim her childhood. And so she did that with the 12-year-old. And then it was just weird. Suddenly she started acting like a little girl instead of trying to act like a grown woman. And even I started to think, okay, I've just picked somebody too young. And while I was trying to figure it out, she just broke it off with me. Like, she decided that she wasn't ready. And so she broke it off with me. But the thing is, I'd already spent a whole summer with her. And by this time she was 16, and I'd taken her to get her driver's license, and everything about her was more of a woman now than when I first met her. And by this time I was almost 19 probably, and she was 16 and a half. And but when she reverted back, it was just the end of it for us. And one night she broke up with me, and I ended up drinking an entire bottle of Tanqueray pretty much straight. Like, I had a fifth of Tanqueray and about a pint of tonic. So I got very drunk on gin and tonic. It was the last time I ever drank gin and tonic. And then I crazily made the drunk driving trip from Arlington to Grapevine, Texas, where my parents lived and where I had a room there. But I will admit that I hadn't been home in a couple of months. And I had been staying on the couch at Stacy's house, Stacy and Sylvia's house. And, when the other girls moved in there, it just started to be a big party, and there was just a lot of people always in, and all the employees that worked for Barry were always in and out. And it wasn't uncommon for them to be, a bunch of them to be laid out in the floor on any Friday or Saturday night just to sleep, like a piles of people, of varying ages from, 16 to 30. And anyway, I make this drunk driving trip home to my parents' house where I haven't been in 2 months. Yes, I know, beat me up now. I was a bad kid, but I was paying them back a little bit for my childhood. And if you know the early episodes of this series, you know what I was put through. And so I didn't feel it necessary to check in with my parents. This is why I find it so weird today, where kids are getting taken care of by their parents into their 30s, where, I was pretty much driven out of the home. I left the home as soon as I could get out. They didn't have to drive me out. I escaped. But anyway, it had been 2 months since I'd been home, and my parents were pastoring a church in Grapevine, and they were living in the parsonage, and I had a room in the parsonage with all my things in it. But like I said, 2 months is kind of a long time to not hear from somebody. And I used my key, and I slipped in the middle of the night, drunk on Tanqueray, and I stumble into my room. And without turning on the lights, I just drop my pants and I sit on the bed to take off my shoes and everything so I can crawl into bed and go to sleep. And when I sit down, I feel something alive underneath me. And I hear the scream of a little girl. Seems like about 4 or 5 years old. Ah! And then I hear a second one. Ah! Now there's 2 little girls screaming in my bedroom. And I'm starting to think, oh my God, I'm drunk. And I came home to the wrong house. And I go flip on the light, and there's sure enough 2 little girls. And it is my room. They're in my room. They're in my bed. Who are these 2 little girls in my bed? And my mom comes in from the noise and opens the door and says, oh, son, I'm sorry. We'll move them. And I'm like, who are these children? And what are they doing in my bed? And she says, they're your cousins. Well, I knew that I was almost the youngest of all the cousins. There was one girl cousin, but she was only 1 year younger than me, so I don't have any cousins that age. So I turn to my mom, and I'm like, I don't have any little girl cousins. Who are these children? And she goes, no, they're your cousin Tommy's kids. And I realized that I do have cousins old enough to have children, and that's okay. There they are. I get it now, and I start to come down. But the old Marine gets out of bed, and he's mad. He's mad that I haven't checked in 2 months. He's mad that I showed up in the middle of the night, and he's mad that I woke him up. And he lays into me. Only I'm drunk on Tanqueray, and I'm not intended to take it anymore. And we have what the closest thing we ever got to a real violent adult male confrontation in his living room, where I bust a lamp and I kick over the couch and I bully the old Marine a little bit, and I think he kind of backs down, but then he runs off to his room, and I'm sure he's going to get a gun and come back and kill me, because I figured it was just a matter of time before the old Marine blew my head off anyway. So when he went to the bedroom hurriedly, my mom turned around and said, "Son, you better get out of here." And so I did. And I took off down the road, Dove Road in Grapevine, Texas, that dead ends into the Grapevine Lake there. And about halfway down, I just get overcome with despair, depression from the alcohol, the realization I just got in a big fight with my dad and that I have no place to go. I can't go home, and I can't go back to Stacy's. I got nowhere to go. I'm homeless in my car, and so I smash my windshield with my fist, and it explodes in a shower of glass. Boom! There's glass all over me. I can't see out the window because it's spider-webbed in every direction, and it's just crystallized the whole thing. And I look down and I realize I've ruined my piano-playing hand, and I busted up my knuckles, something that I never did. And, now I'm dealing with this. And so I had to stick my head out the window to drive because I can't see out the windshield. I got to stick my head out the side window. And I go to the lake and I think about it, and then I think I've got to go back home. It's the only place I've got. I've got to go back and suck it up and apologize. And when I come back, my mom's waiting for me, and I guess she's had time to cool the old Marine down. And she tells me, "Son, I moved the kids out of your bed, and you can have your bed back. And it's okay. Just come in and sleep it off." And I'm sure I just smelled like gin, And so I went to bed, and I didn't wake up till the next morning. And I fell asleep on my hands like this. And I wake up, and I sit up in bed, except my hand is stuck to my face. The blood is congealed into a scab that is now adhered to my face. And I have to reach up and literally peel it off of my face, and it makes it leaves part of the scab on my face. And I realize that my hand is just encrusted with glass, like there's glass all in my knuckles. And so I get up, and I come out of the bedroom, and I walk towards the restroom, and Dad can see me from the kitchen table, and he's drinking coffee, and he looks at me, and he goes, "Rough night?" That's one thing I can say about the old Marine. He did have a sense of humor. So, I guess all was forgiven. I had to do a lot of extra work to pay for my windshield. I must have picked glass out of my hand for hours until finally the old Marine helped me bandage it up. And he come out and fixed me up and brought me a first aid kit. My mom had gone to work by then. She had to work that day at the donut shop, making the donuts. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of the where I found myself. And so I really just had to have closure. The way that she broke it off with me, I was so in love with her. I let myself fall in love with that girl. And so I started kind of being the heartbroken, little boy, and I kept hanging around trying to see her. And of course I was still working for her brother out at Trader's Village. And I couldn't let it go, And because she wouldn't talk to me at all, that's the thing. She wouldn't talk to me. I could get no closure. She wouldn't explain herself. It was just over, and she wouldn't speak to me anymore. And her mom was trying to explain to me, well, you're just a couple years ahead of her, and she's not ready to be a grown-up yet. And she's reverted back to being a child, which her mom was a little concerned about because that was kind of weird. And she helped me to understand, and pretty soon I kind of let go of it, and I just kept working for her brother. And I was around working, for Barry, but I was around Stacy, and I just left her be, and we didn't talk. But I got closer and closer with her mom over the course of about 6 or 8 weeks. And one of those nights happened where we'd all finished the day working, and we came back to Sylvia's apartment, Sylvia and Stacy's place, and we all pitched in and cooked dinner, and we had this really huge party, I guess you could say, and meal we made, and I helped her in the kitchen, and everyone ate, and we sat around the fire, and we drank wine, and everyone fell asleep. But me and Sylvia, we sat up and we talked for like 2 hours while the whole house slept. And then it happened. Now, I can't remember if I initiated the kiss or she initiated the kiss, or whether the kiss just happened. But I kissed Stacy's mom, and it was passionate, and it was adult, and it was everything I ever dreamed of, And in that moment, even though I felt like it was wrong, and I knew that people would understand about this even less than they understood about Stacy, I knew in that moment that it was going to happen, that me and Stacy's mom were going to be together. And we sat there and on the floor and we kissed and made out, and honestly, I thought it was going to turn into something else when she jumped straight up and yelled, "I can't do this. This is wrong. I'm out of here. I can't do this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I can't do this." And then she ran to her bedroom and slammed the door. I was not real happy with that verdict. I don't know. To me, age has always been a number. Don't jump on me and throw me under the bus because of this. Because you know what? Back then, age was a number. People were not as upset about teenagers and adults, But I will say this: the thing with Stacy was pretty normal. The thing with Stacy's mom was something nobody, I think, had really ever done before, and definitely not in the open. And I won't say that the Fountains of Wayne song, Stacy's Mom, was written about me, because I don't know that it was, but I will say this: I can't help but think that they didn't get a wind of the urban legend that was generated around the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the middle 80s concerning a young boy and a woman known as Stacy's mom. Because Stacy was really popular, and she was an outgoing girl, and everyone knew her, and so most people didn't even know Sylvia's name. They just called her Stacy's mom. And for months or weeks after this relationship ended, even years later, I would run into people and they would go, "Oh, you're that Stacy's mom guy." So it's possible that Stacy's mom was written about the urban legend, because there definitely was an urban legend generated. At that time, the idea of cougars and older women preying upon younger men was something you might have seen on, I guess that was even before Jerry Springer, The Donahue Show or something like that, But it was definitely not common. And, but back to the story. Everyone lay asleep on the floor. She'd gone back to her room, and I started hatching a plan. And I waited until the morning, and I don't think I slept a wink. Everybody got up. Everybody was in a rush. Everybody had breakfast to go off to work, because, see, everybody is going to leave and go to work. Everybody except Sylvia, because she didn't come in till later, because, she kind of owned the company. So she could do whatever she wanted. And she liked sleeping in on Saturday mornings. So everybody went off to Trader's Village, and I played sick and laid on the couch and told everybody, "I can't go. I'm sick. I don't know what. I ate something bad last night, or I got a hangover. I can't go." And everyone went to work without me and left me alone in the apartment with Sylvia. And when the last person left, I locked the door and I waited and I listened. And then I just snuck into her room and climbed into bed with her. I'm glad she didn't slap me, kick me out of the bed, freak out and scream and call the popo, which is probably what would happen nowadays, just on the principle of that kind of approach. But no, she welcomed me into her bed, and we made love all day. And, we stopped enough to order pizza in the middle of the day and refuel. And this is how I learned about man and woman interpersonal relationships, okay, was from Stacy's mom. And, we kept it a secret. We kept seeing each other. And I guess it was going on for maybe 2 or 3 months, right under the nose of everyone, and we were very good at it. Until one day, Barry's girlfriend just walked in on us kissing. And there just wasn't any hiding it anymore. She threw down the BS card, said, "I knew it. I knew it. I just felt it. I felt like you guys were together, and I felt like this has been going on for a long time." And so we just kind of opened up to her, and it became a known thing with her, and she agreed to keep our secret. She did not keep our secret. She did not keep our secret. By this time, I think that in retrospect, I can say that I was definitely in love with Stacy's mom. And I believe maybe I have my doubts as to how much Sylvia loved me and how much it was a fling for her. But I definitely, by this time, was in love with her. And it gets back to Stacy, what's going on. And by now, Stacy's got another boyfriend. And he's even older than me. So by this time, she's 17, and she's dating a 24-year-old. Okay? And she finds out about me and her mom, and she comes and confronts me in her mom's bedroom, right? And she goes, look, I know what's going on with you and mom. And I was just crushed because I hoped she'd never found out. I was a little guilty about the whole thing. And even though I was in love with Stacy's mom, I think maybe the first lesson that I learned that you can be in love with more than one person at a time. Because I felt like I still had feelings for Stacy. Plus, Stacy's my age. She was someone I could marry. She was someone we could have kids. You know, Sylvia was not equipped to have children anymore. And, you know, me and Stacy could have a regular life and live together as husband and wife and raise a family. So it was a much more viable option for me. And so I guess I retained the hope that someday her and I could be together. I never really processed the fact that once you sleep with a woman's mom, you're probably not ever going to be considered husband material again. Just something you miss when you're that age, I guess. Hey, I can look back and laugh at my stupidity at least. And I'm in no way defending this. This is just what happened. This is just what went down. This is the perils of an interesting life, right? So anyway, she's confronting me and telling me, I know about you and mom. And I'm a little defensive at first. I mean, I feel guilty, but I'm like, well, you know, you're the one that broke it off with me. And, you know, I guess your mom just couldn't stand seeing a perfectly good man laying around. You know, I was just being a little flippant about it. And she goes, and I said, so, you know, I'm sorry. I know you probably feel like I betrayed you. And she goes, no, that's not it. I'm like, what? She says, you don't understand at all. Because by then she's crying, like she's really upset, you know. And she says, you were the one. I always thought you were the one. I just wanted you to wait for me. I just wanted you to give me a little more time. And, you know, and I said, but you broke it off with me. And she goes, I know. Maybe I was testing you to see if you'd come back. I chased her for a month after that. She never even spoke to me, right? But she's telling me that her regret is that she thought her and I would always be together, and she wanted to be together with me still. And she says, break up with my mom and get back with me. And I didn't even think about it 10 seconds before I said, okay, I'll do it. I'll tell her tomorrow. You know, it's just sex. It's nothing else. I'll do it tomorrow. I mean, I'll do it today, rather. I'll do it right now. You know, she wasn't there. But as soon as I see her, you know, I told her I'll do it. I just accepted it. And I marched ahead with it. And she was so happy, and she kissed me and hugged me, and then she left. And I continued getting my things together because I think I was headed off to work or something, or a gig maybe. And so I was going to go break it off with her mom. But before I can get out of the house, Stacy turns around and comes back and says, I can't do this to her. I just can't do this to my mom. She loves you, and I can't do this to her. We can't be together. And she breaks up with me again. This would be a reoccurring theme with her over the years. But nonetheless, the relationship between Stacy and I turned into a friendship. And it turned into almost like I was dad to some degree, because once she found out, it became public knowledge in our sphere as friends that Sylvia and I were a couple, and we started acting like it. You know, we started going together and doing things together, and, you know, going places together and taking trips together. And, you know, we were just a couple. We were a autumn, spring couple, you know. She was 48 and I was 19 and, or 18. And, you know, it went on until she was 50. And my family, when they found out about it, and that's going to be in the next video, I'll tell you how they found out about it. But when my family found out about it, they really painted her as like a pedophile or a victimizer, and me as a foolish child who was being taken advantage of by a Jezebel. And I felt like I was the one making the decisions. I felt like I was the one that decided to be with her, and I did not feel like I was being manipulated at all. But looking back on it now, as a 51-year-old man, how easy would it be for me to twist around my little finger an 18-year-old girl? You know, I just know so much more about life. I can see right through them. My wisdom is so much greater than theirs that I could easily manipulate a girl that age if I wanted to. But the thought never entered my mind as a 51-year-old man, If I ever date again, it's going to be women my age, I've always dated women my age or older women. I married an older woman. My baby mom is 7 years older than me. And I think Stacy was the only younger girl I ever dated. And but looking back on it, maybe Sylvia did manipulate that. Maybe I was, to some degree, a victim of her much more advanced knowledge of the world and worldliness, and I really was just a kid right off the farm. I mean, she's only the second woman I'd ever been with. And so in the next episode, we'll talk about where that relationship went, how it ended, what it was like when Barry found out, and what it was like when my parents found out, and whether or not the urban legend might have spawned the song Stacy's Mom by Fountains of Wayne. But at any rate, even if it didn't, what a coincidence that they wrote a song that almost exactly describes what went down with me and Stacy and Sylvia. So we'll see you next time in The Perils of an Interesting Life.